following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back when Bums and Jints walk the streets of New York. A little name change, but the good news is Peter Trunk is here. Ron Rabinovitz is back on the DL. I'm here too. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. We do have a name change, but here's Peter right now. Peter Trunk, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Ralph? Good to hear your voice. I'm sorry that Ronnie couldn't be with us tonight. Ronnie's feeling under the weather. He's got an asthmatic condition, or he's got a bad cough. He's feeling better. He's feeling better. He's under doctor's care.
He took an upturn today, but he's been sick for a week or so, and we're worried about him. And here's to you, Ronnie. Get better soon.
Yes, Ronnie.
I hope you enjoy the show, Ronnie, because we're thinking about you. And we're going to talk a little, change the tone of the show a little bit. We're going to try to let other people talk about the L.A. Dodgers. And
We were getting a little stale on that, I thought. I agree with you 100%, Ralph. We're getting a little stale. Brooklyn to Los Angeles, a tale of two cities. It was a great idea. It lasted very long. It ran its course. We'll let other people talk about the Los Angeles club. We're going to talk about the Harlem Horseshoe and the People's Republic of Stickball, meaning we're going to stop at 100.
We're also going to talk a little bit about the way things were back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bums and Jints. How the city was, how the country was. It's ironic that the three of us, Ronnie, you and I, are all three born. I think you're born in 1946. I know I am, and I think Ronnie is as well. He may be.
Ronnie is 1 year older than the two of us.
He's a year older, is that right?
He's a year older. The way I understand it, yes, he's a year older.
Okay, but we're old enough, the three of us feel that we can fill a niche and bring those days back because, a lot of our elders are passing on, and the way of it is mortality is winning. So the more we can put out there about the way it was, baseball, of course, number one. But there's a lot that surrounded the game itself. And let's chat, Peter, if you would, with me about the demeanor of folks when they went to a game. The booing, their dress, their what was it like? I know what it was like from my eyes to go to a game in, say, 1954, 55, when we were such innocent kids with either our dads, grandparents, uncles, cousins, older. What was it like, or the surroundings, compared to what it's like to go to a game today?
Well, the biggest change, and there are several, the biggest change for my eyes and ears would be that today when you go to a game, 95% of the people that are attending the game are wearing the MLB official clothing and caps of the home team, and there are maybe another percentage, a much smaller percentage, the visiting team. The smallest percentage of fans are ones that are dressed like they're going to the store, like the ShopRite or something. Most of the people are wearing the caps, the uniform jersey, the jacket, et cetera, et cetera. Back in the day, you never saw anyone do that. Never. And
but
men
those
wore
wore
suits.
neckties and hats.
Men wore suits.
Not
Men
caps.
wore suits and fedoras. Men
Yeah.
wore suits and fedoras. If you see the old photographs of the World Series, 98% of the crowd is male, and 98% of that crowd, that male crowd, are wearing fedoras and a tie with a jacket that's buttoned. Their jacket is actually buttoned.
Right.
At the ball game. Another
And
thing that people never bring up, you know, and if there were women there, the women had a hat on, a dress on. She looked like she was ready to go to church. Okay, the women were dressed like they were going to church. But I'm going to tell you,
on the subway in those days, you didn't have to go to the ball game or an event to get dressed up. You could get dressed up to go to visit your grandkids. My grandparents, my grandfather would come in a tie.
That's absolutely correct. And you know what? Remember when people were dressed to fly? When you would fly somewhere, men would be in suits with ties, women would be in dresses. It all changed. Another thing, I want to bring this up before I forget it. We were talking about off the air,
Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry David. He did a bit with talking on the airplane to this guy sitting next to him, and he's in shorts. It offended Larry's sensibilities, right, wrong, or good, bad, or indifferent. You may not like him, but he had a way of telling the guy, you know, I don't know, you're wearing shorts. You think that's appropriate? I don't know. I would be
pretty inappropriate.
Yeah, right.
Another big thing, Ralph. Wait a minute. Another big. How about the language at ball games?
Oh,
when you were a kid.
Well,
it
reflects cable television and
people would boo,
the language of
et cetera, stuff, but they would never yell out curse words.
No. And booing was respectable. I mean, it was boo, boo. They wouldn't bring players' family members into it. I hear a lot of stuff like that, and it's certainly, if you stop to think about today's day, with the racial thing, what happened in Boston this past season with Adam Jones, he's crazy with the fans. It just makes you think, wow, you know, did we not get by this 40, 50 years ago with Jackie? And not just Jackie, the other Robinsons and Banks and all these guys who came up and had to take a hell of a time, you know, just to cross the line, which was made by crazy folks. Yeah. So, as we talked off the air, the good old days weren't all that good all the time.
They never are. You know, I can't stand when people say the good old days. You know, I'm not one of those I'm an old-timer. Don't get me wrong. I'm not denying being an old-timer. But I'm not one of those old-timers that say, why can't it be like it used to be? Well, hell, who the hell wants it to be like it used to be? You used to get a flat every other week on your car. You had no air conditioning. Blacks were treated like dog shit. I mean, you know, they had black water fountains and black men's rooms. I don't want to go back to something like that. You'd die when you got the flu, or, you know, if God forbid a doctor ever said any type of cancer, that was it. You went and you picked out your coffin. There was no such thing as getting better from that, or you know, rallying or anything like that from there. It's just, and other guys say, oh, you know, when I was a kid, you know, and these guys aren't even that old. I'm talking about, I hear guys at parties and at cookouts that are like barely 50, and they're saying, oh, we had better ball players back then. We had, I remember, you know, Al Kaline and Rocky Colavito and Harmon Killebrew.
Well, the truth of the matter is, talent-wise, just skill-wise, we have incredible players in today's day and age. We compare, like, the Giants and Dodgers to the players of their age, to the Cardinals that played, and the Cubs that played in the 50s. But and no comparison in terms of skills, but developed skills of teamwork and what have you. That it was much greater then. But for pure, unadulterated athleticism, wow.
No comparison. I'm going to ask you a question. I know you're a Giants fan. I know you were raised up as a little kid. You loved the New York Giants. You went to the Polo Grounds. You loved Willie Mays, etc. You definitely are aware of Mays' spectacular catch off of Vic Wertz in Game 1 of the 1954 World Series. Well, you know, if you watch ESPN any night during the baseball season, you see two catches like that a night.
Well, you know, I just happened to have bought a book today, a used book, written by a fellow who I got to interview. The book is A Day in the Bleachers, and the author is Arnold Hanno.
Arnold Hanno. I read that book. Great book.
Terrific book. I read it as a kid. I just picked it up at a used bookstore today. I want to tell you about that catch. It wasn't the catch. You may see catches of that sort, but you won't see throws of that sort. Remember how Willie's body was when he caught the ball, and remember the importance of him holding those runners in double play, you know, out of scoring position. I can still see in my mind's eye. I don't remember it at age 10, but from reading about it and what have you, Al Rosen hustling back to first base from the throw-in. And let's not forget, too, how deep that park was and how fast Willie ran.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding that, was it the greatest catch in the world? No. But it might have been the greatest throw in the world. So that's how I do feel about Willie. But if you wanted to ask me, say, the question, who is better, Bonds or Mays?
Want me to ask you that question? Go ahead, answer it.
Yeah.
Who's better?
First thing, you can't really compare a center fielder to a left fielder. So I would automatically assume that the center fielder would be the better fielder. Let's say Bond's arm, weak arm notwithstanding, but the rest of it, whoa! I mean, because I watched. I was living out here, am living out here, when Bonds was in a groove, a Sandy Koufax-like groove for 5 years, where you couldn't pitch to him. He wouldn't take a walk. He reminded you of Ted Williams in that respect. He had the armor. They had this crazy armor on his elbow, so he wasn't afraid to hang in there. He was steroidal as fuck, so every day he was fully recovered, which is the main effect of steroids. But not that Willie didn't have his juice, and that got him through. Each generation has their this, that's, and the other thing. I'd be hard-pressed to say that Barry Bonds wasn't on just performance. Look at those numbers.
Here's something to think about Bonds.
I'm not going to mouth the words better than Willie, because Willie brought intangibles, and Bonds' intangibles sucked.
Yeah.
He was a horrible teammate, horrible human, and Willie was a prickly human, not a horrible human, and a great teammate, and had instincts, baseball instincts, and all of those other things. So let's just say I can't answer that question.
Well, you asked me that question, or you asked yourself that question. You put it out there, and I'm thinking to myself, you have made a good point there. Bonds had a 5 or 6 year Koufax type run. Steroids, I would have to say that he definitely took steroids. No doubt in my mind that he took them.
But he did have Hall of Fame numbers before he ever took.
People like to say that, yes. People like to say that, and I've said that too about him. But here's something that I just thought of listening to you not 1.5 minutes ago. He had that 5 or 6 year stretch, and I watched it. You watched it closer because you lived right there. But I watched it because he was on TV all the time. And I'll tell you this, steroids will make you hit the ball further. There's no doubt about it. So a guy flying out to deep center field, these balls would go over the wall when a steroid guy hit them. I get it. But I'm hard-pressed.
Do you get the fact that the pitcher he's facing was more than likely on steroids as well?
I'm hard-pressed. That could be. I'm hard-pressed to remember a time in that span of 5 or 6 years if I ever saw Barry Bonds swing and miss at a pitch. I don't remember him doing that. I'm sure he fouled some off. He hit some fouls and stuff like that. I don't remember him, and he struck out. He got called out on strikes a lot. I don't remember him swinging and missing.
Well, and you're going to say
I don't think steroids helps you with that. Steroids
it
doesn't
help
with
you other than it gets you well rested enough to bring the bat through the ball.
Yeah, the recovery.
You don't have that, what they used to say, the dog days of summer. Right. There were no dog days because those chemists had his body working at top flight efficiency. Yeah. And the hypocrisy of it is, well, I didn't know. I had no idea what was going on. Could you imagine a world-class athlete not knowing what goes into their body?
Yeah.
What we have to do, what we old traditionalists, I've learned, have to do, is simply compare players of their era to each other. And we lose the sitting around in a bar or as kids by the candy store going back and forth as to was Ted Williams better than Ty Cobb? Was, that kind of thing. You can't do that anymore. You can't.
No, you can't.
You couldn't do it back then either because
we didn't know any better.
Blacks till 47. There was it was 8 teams for the longest period of time before expansion. So how can you compare a diluted game to a game when there were only 25 players times 8 in the league, as opposed to 25 players times like 15 in the league?
Well, I can play devil's advocate. And tell you that there were 175 million Americans back then, and now there's 315 million.
Well, and you could also say we're dealing with Latins, Chinese, Koreans. The whole world. We're drawing from the talent of other countries,
right?
Who produce. They have extraordinary skills or talents, tools, let's say, but they don't have the skills. They don't have as good of an instruction in, say, the Dominican or Puerto Rico as they do here.
Yeah.
Until lately, teams have been setting up academies, but in the old days, there were only two
They
or
were
three.
raw.
Right. 2 or 3 teams who were really scouting over there. The Giants were a team. Washington Senators were in Cuba. Bill Veck were bringing in guys, Bobby Villa and what have you. The owners were there were only a few colorblind owners back then.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads me to ask you this question. If Branch Rickey hadn't broken the color line, which owner do you think would have?
Bill Veck.
I agree with you.
Bill Veck almost did it before Branch.
There are stories that he wanted to do it in the 30s.
He wanted to buy the Philadelphia Phillies, and he wanted, like, let's say, the New York Cubans or the Kansas City Monarchs or something. He wanted to fill his roster with those guys.
Right.
And of course, they blocked him at every turn. But I think he would have done it.
Good, very good point.
Bill Veck.
Hey, Peter, this has been a very nice show.
Yeah, nice. I liked it.
I've missed talking to you.
When the Jints and the Dodgers walked the streets of New York.
When the Jints and the Bums walked. When Jints and Bums walked the streets of New York.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Well, your liking it is the reason I wrote it, basically.
Okay.
How about that?
I'm on board. I'm on board.
Next week we will do it again, and we will have Ronnie back with us. And,
wonderful.
We're just hoping things continue to get better for him. He's had
wonderful.
a rough ass year.
Yeah, it's been a rough 365 for Ronnie. He's going to bounce back, though. I'm certain of it. He's got a good attitude.
He has a good attitude and a smile on his voice whenever you talk to the man, which is something that Larry David might not approve of.
No, he would not. Although I approve of Larry David. I like Curb Your Enthusiasm a lot.
Oh, we were both talking about that. I can't tell you how much of that stuff I get every week.
It's great.
Because I've got Infinity, and you can just push a button, and you watch any episode, and it gets better, and he just comes up with topics that hitherto unexplored on any sort of communication, even between people, topics that we never dreamt of talking about over a kitchen table, or to think that it would be brought into people's living rooms really tells you a lot that we've come far in some ways.
Oh, yeah.
We're able to use humor and directness to at least put the word out there. And to say nothing of the fact that Larry David, when he was producing Seinfeld, he must have had, as Peter Golenbach said, some sort of source into the Yankee locker room, because Peter Golenbach, who has written a book about George Steinbrenner and knows of him and about him through Billy Martin, who he's written a book about, and Greg Nettles, who he's written a book about. He says that the way that Seinfeld captures George Steinbrenner is absolutely right on 100%.
And that was Larry David playing him, you know.
That with the voice.
From the back with a wig on, right. That was Larry David doing it.
And I didn't know he did the actual. I thought it was just the voice.
Yeah. You can Google it after you hang up.
Himself. Well, very
interesting. He did it himself. That was him himself.
Okay. And as far as I know, that was his only appearance on Seinfeld. He didn't do any.
I believe so. You could Google that too. He might have made another one. I'm not sure. I'm not up on Seinfeld's trivia, although one of my favorite shows of all time. I've seen every episode many times.
Well, what is your favorite episode? I thought you were going to say what your favorite episode was.
Oh, no. I have too many. I can't. Just like Curb, I can't even name my favorite episode. Because
here's mine in a nutshell. Well, there are two. The one with Elaine, she says, "The dingoes ate your baby."
The dingo ate your baby.
Right. That made me laugh. And when George looks up at the boss who caught him making love on the desk, he says, "Was that wrong?
Was that wrong?
Was that wrong?"
Right.
So,
and then when Elaine says, Elaine comes into Jerry's apartment in one show, and Jerry says, "So, how was your date last night?" And Elaine says, "He took it out." And Jerry says, "What?" She said, "He took it out." And then Kramer comes in. He goes, "Hey, how was your date last night?" And she says, "He took it out." And Kramer almost has a conniption fit. He jumps and bobbles around. His head's going back and forth. He what? He took it out. And Kramer goes, "Well, those things, we need air. Sometimes you got to air them out."
That's beautiful. And even the one thing about you can't really put into words what's funny with Kramer, because just his entrances and his reactions, his takes.
That was 50% of his shtick.
Right.
His body.
Right.
Yeah.
He was the Carney of his time. Ed Norton.
Ed Norton. Art Carney.
Art Carney. He'd make the entrances. Art Carney was a little more reserved, but equally funny in a lot of ways. He was just moving over to address the ball.
Hello, ball. Yeah.
All right, Peter.
Ralph, good talking with you.
You be well. Listen to how I'm ending most of the shows that I do nowadays, and see if you.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm asking folks if they would box up some lightly used children's books and bring them to the Head Start program in whatever community they live in. It would bring kids, make them school ready, teach them to read, give them a passion, get them out of looking at their devices, and I think it would be a wonderful thing. Children are our only hope of turning all this craziness that's going on in this world around. So I'm going to keep reminding people, if they would do that, the Head Start program would be very grateful, and it would make me happy.
Nice.
So,
very well done.
You agree, Peter? Say, yeah. Right on. Right on, Jew boy. Go ahead. Encourage him.
Encourage him. All right, listen. It really was a pleasure.
We'll be back next week.
We'll be back next week. Okay, and to Tally, too.
All right, Ronnie will be with
us. Buddy.
God be willing.
Take care, buddy.
See ya. Adios, everybody.